Hello, and welcome to Makerspace Podcast. My name is Ray Craggy.
And I'm Ian Charnas.
And today we'll be talking about task management. Yes, task management. How everything in your Makerspace gets done. And as always, we like to start with a story. Ian, what's our story for today?
The story for today is called Get More Photos for the Website. I've told this many times in many different presentations, but it goes a little something like this. When I was first in charge of managing a Makerspace for the first time, I had some student workers, and I gave one of the student workers the task, hey, would you please get some more photos of projects that are worthy of featuring on the website? Just wanted a couple photos. It seemed like a task that was actionable. Go get some more photos for the website. I can say it out loud. Can this person just go do it? 2 weeks went by. There was no action. And I came up to the person. I said, hey, how are we doing on that task of getting more photos of featured projects for the website? And they said, well, I've not made much progress. I had some questions. Okay, well, first, come to me for questions, please. Don't just sit there twiddling your thumbs. But second, what are those questions? I want to know. They had questions about nearly every aspect of this. How many photos did I want? Which projects should be featured? What resolution? Should these be JPEG or RAW? What camera should they use? How should they deliver them? What are the contact infos for the projects that we wanted? These are all totally realistic questions, and I realized I hadn't given them a task that was truly actionable because I didn't script it out. Although in my mind, I would know how to go about this task, I hadn't scripted it out to the point where someone who isn't allowed access to inside my brain could actually do those things. And that was the day that I learned there's more to task management than just asking somebody to do something. So that was the day I set about learning different task management systems. I read a whole lot of books. The best one I found out there, in my personal opinion, was Getting Things Done by David Allen. And that's a system we still use today.
Getting Things Done, or GTD, is a system for personal organization that allows you to take all the abstract things in your life, all the to-dos and the projects, and put them into a system where you can act on them intentionally to get things done. Getting Things Done is usually used as a personal system for one person, but we found it so valuable that we've adapted the GTD system in order to use as a team.
And that's what we're going to be going over today. We're going to show you how to build a task management system from start to finish using the Getting Things Done framework and a web application called Trello.
Trello is an online, collaborative organizational tool that allows you to track information kept on cards that are held in lists that are kept on boards. And because of this software, we can get everyone on those boards communicating, tracking their progress, sharing information so that we can continue to move things forward. And also make note when things stop moving.
So no more sticky notes. No more whiteboard lists, no more pieces of paper that you find in your pocket after you do your laundry and you wonder what to-do item you have just destroyed in your washing of your pants. Instead, you're going to have this beautiful, crisp web application, also functions as a mobile application. At one glance, you and everybody on your team is going to be able to see the status of every single action item and every single project, and we'll go over the difference between those two things soon, in your entire Makerspace. It's going to make you feel on top of things.
So let's get started.
So what we've got here is an empty board. As Ray mentioned, items in Trello are called cards. A card might represent a particular task, and cards are organized into lists, and lists are organized into boards. So right now we're looking at a blank board. And it's time to make our first list. Ray, let's start with the very first list. You know it as well as I do. The inbox. Right now, Ray's going to create a list called inbox. And initially, it's blank, but this is about to have all of the tasks that are floating around on sticky notes, reminders on your calendar, etc. Ray, what goes in the inbox?
So the first step of the Getting Things Done system is to capture everything that's going on in your space, in your mind, on your tiny pieces of paper, and put them into one spot. And make sure that as those things come in, they're all going to the same spot. So you're not dealing with this inbox over here and your email and all these different things. So that you have a very clear idea of what it is you're being asked to do. So your inbox is your one-stop shop where you're going to funnel all those abstract needs and observations into one place so that we can then turn them into action items. We can script them out so that we can actually make progress.
Okay, Ray, let's add some cards so they can see this in reality. What kinds of things would go into your inbox?
Well, someone sent me an email earlier this week, and they noted that the floor 2 water fountain is broken.
So Ray's creating this card. Right now, it's just a note. It's a little bit of an amorphous task. We haven't yet scripted it out, but that's okay. Stuff that is still amorphous stuff goes into the inbox. Later on, when we create our action items lists, we're going to be scripting these out so that they can be done by ourselves or our staff or student workers.
That's correct. At this point, I haven't said anything about what we're going to do to fix this problem. I've just collected the observation into the inbox so we can tackle it later.
Another example might be that the laser cutter we observed or a user observed is cutting through well on the left side of the laser cutter, but not so well on the right side. So this is a challenge or a problem that exists in the lab. We don't yet have a solution. Perhaps in the back of our minds, we know what the solution is at this point, and we can share that with you. But at the moment, it's in the inbox as an amorphous item that has yet to be tackled. And that's okay. This is where non-scripted stuff goes. Let's give another couple examples. Ray, I just heard from one of our student workers that we are running low on red Ultimaker filament.
Well, that sounds like it needs to go into the inbox. Buy more red Ultimaker filament.
Let's keep going. What if we have a vinyl cutter in our Makerspace and we've got rolls of vinyl, and right now they're just in a cardboard box or they're stored on a shelf somewhere, and we want something a little more professional? Could we assign a student worker to research storage options for our rolls of vinyl? I don't see why not.
One of the key principles of GTD is that you need to be able to distinguish between what is an action item and what is a project. So now we've created these various items in our inbox. The next step is we need to figure out what are the actual actionable steps that we can take in order to bring these to a resolution. And so we need to figure out what is an action item, a singular task that we can do in one sitting, versus a project, a long-term goal that's maybe made up of many action items. In our day-to-day work, we'll often have a smorgasbord of action items and projects that we have to deal with, and so our system needs to be able to handle both.
So to go back to our example at the beginning of this cast, I wanted a student worker to go get more photos of projects for the website. If I were to script that out, I would give the student worker a set of instructions that would require, ideally, no further questions for me, and enable them to actually go out and do that task. If I were to script out the task of getting more photos for the website, it might look something like this. Student worker, I want you to get photos of these 3 projects for the website. These are the 3 projects I want, and here's a contact email for each project. I'd like them in 1024 by 768 pixel JPEG with no compression, and I'd like them emailed to me. That would be something that the student worker could sit down and do. They could email those users or students who did those projects, wait back to get the photos, and then complete the task. That is scripted out. That's what we're talking about by scripted.
All right, so we need to add a place for action items to our task management system. So we're actually going to add 2. We're going to add unassigned action items.
And these, as you may guess, are unassigned. They're action items to whom no person is assigned yet to do. So, of course, then, when we're ready to assign an action item, we want to make a in-progress list so that we know that there's an action item, it's been assigned to someone, and they are actively doing it.
All right, so let's step through the process of making an action item. We're going to look at our inbox and say, aha, the floor 2 water fountain is broken. Well, I know how we need to go about fixing this. This requires a facilities request. We can't fix the water fountain. That's what they do. So if I want to hand off this task to a student worker, I need to provide them with a couple bits of information. So in unassigned action items, I'm going to add a card, and I'm going to say report floor 2 water fountain to facilities. All right, there it is. So, what is the information we have to provide the student? Well,
Oh, I want to highlight what Ray just did. Ray just clicked on a card that he had created, and it opened up what we call the back of the card. The back of the card has all of the information regarding the card. So there's not just the title, which is what you see when you're looking at the board, but we can add comments, we can talk to each other, we can tag each other in the comments, we can add files, we can set a due date, we can add checklists. These are the details of the task.
on the back of this card, I'm going to provide some additional information that the student will need in order to complete this task. That is, reporting that the floor 2 water fountain is broken. So I'll say, hello, student. The floor 2 water fountain is leaking. Please call facilities at 333-333-3333 at the start of your next shift and report the water fountain to them. When you've made the call and scheduled a visit from facilities, you may move this card to done. Thanks, Ray.
So that's the script that the student worker needs. Those are all the details that he or she are going to need to take action on this action item. Looks good. Now, Ray, we told that student worker to move this to the done list, but we haven't actually created that. So let's add that to our board. We need a list to hold items that are done. The idea with these tasks is that just like making this simple phone call, they're supposed to be small, lightweight tasks that you can get done rather quickly, certainly within the bounds of a single shift for your student worker or for your staff, and ideally within the bounds of just a few minutes or just a few hours, so that these things are flying through this board and flying into the done column, and you get that feeling of momentum that your group is getting lots of stuff done. So we have scripted this out. Currently it's unassigned, but very soon we would want to assign a particular student worker to this and then move it over to the in progress list.
So I can move this card by clicking and dragging to in progress. And when I go back onto the card, I can add members. Now, in this particular case, I know just the person for the job. Myself. And so I'm going to assign me to this card. So now that I've joined this card, I can have conversations. So now I can track how this task is going. So maybe I tried calling, but I got sent to voicemail.
And that's a great way to improve communication within your organization. If each person on your team can check the progress of these action items and projects, everyone knows what's going on. Everyone's in the loop. Nobody's coming up to you and asking you questions. Nobody's reporting the water fountain broken 17 times in a row because they can see that it's already being tracked in your task management system.
So finally, after all, I have a chance to call facilities and schedule a visit. And at that point, my responsibility here is done. There's no more I can do in order to help facilitate fixing the floor 2 water fountain. That's why I get to move it to done. And so that's probably the simplest workflow that you'll find. Report something, you create an action item, and then the action item is done. Easy peasy. But it doesn't always work like that. So now that we've dealt with the floor 2 water fountain, I'm going to go in here and archive so that it's no longer cluttering our workspace. So now we can start on the next thing.
Alrighty, so our next inbox item is that a user has reported that the laser cutter is cutting poorly on one side of the bed. Now, there's several things that could cause this, but the first thing I would go and check is to make sure that the bed is level. So if we were to script this out, we would create a card in the unassigned action items list asking a student worker or a staff member to please level the bed on the laser cutter. Very good. And on the details for that card, hello, student. Please follow the instructions in the laser cutter manual to level the bed. Before and after you do this, go ahead and do a test cut in all 4 corners of the laser cutter bed and show me the results of the test cuts so we can examine together whether we have fixed the issue. When this is ready for me to review, please move this card to ready for review.
Ready for review? Ian, what's that?
Well, it's a list that we haven't created yet. So we're going to go ahead and create this new list, ready for review, and we're going to put it in an order that makes sense. So at some point here, we're going to assign level the laser cutter bed to a student, perhaps a student who is coming into a shift tomorrow morning. We'll move this into in progress. At this point, it would have a student worker assigned to it. When they finish their task, they're going to take the card and move it again to ready for review. They may even tag you in the card so that you receive a notification that this card is ready for your review. At that point, you get a chance to ensure quality. You get a chance to ensure the quality of the action items that your student workers or other staff are completing before you either move it to done because it's been done to your satisfaction, or move it back to in progress with a note for your student worker on what more you would like them to do. So in this manner, we're able to track action items and see their status. Now that we've created this card, of course, we're going to want to remove the clutter from the inbox. Our unscripted stuff is going to be removed. So I'm going to open this card, and again, just like Ray did, click Archive. Close that. So that's out of the inbox, and we've moved it all the way over to Done. Now, Ray, what if we have a problem with one of these action items? For example, what if we script out buy more red Ultimaker filament? So I'm going to assign it to a student worker directly. Create an order for more red Ultimaker filament. And I'll click on that. Please call Ultimaker at 555-555-5555. Very convenient that Ultimaker chose that phone number. And request a quote for 4 spools of red Ultimaker filament. When you are done, email the quote to my address and move this card to the done list. Okay. Now, let's say that we've assigned this card to a student worker. They begin to do that task. They call Ultimaker, who tells them they are out of stock of red. What is that student worker to do? We've sort of hit an impasse here where there's a delay, there's a problem, we're waiting on something. In the Getting Things Done system, this is handled by a list called problem/waiting for. Problem/waiting for. So what a student worker would do is they would add a comment, so they would communicate clearly what is happening. They would say, for example, hi, I called Ultimaker, but unfortunately, they are out of red filament until next month. So the student worker would save that. They might notify us by tagging us in the card, and we might move this to problem/waiting for.
By moving the card to problem/waiting for, we're calling attention to it, but we're also removing it from the rest of the workflow. That way, we're not gumming up the works.
So again, I've got a little bit of cleanup to do here. We've already scripted this out, so I'm going to open that card and archive it.
All right, so let's head back to the inbox. We see we've got one last thing in our inbox that we need to deal with. We need to find a new storage option for rolls of vinyl. We're getting a vinyl cutter. We want to sell different colors of material, but the question is, how are we going to store it? Or maybe we already have some vinyl and it's laying on a shelf. All right, whatever the situation, we've got some work to do. But this is a little bit more than just a single action item. It's not just about finding different storage options for rolls of vinyl. We need to research them, we need to make some decisions, we need to examine our own space to see what options will work. One action item just isn't going to cut it. This is a project. A project requires multiple action items in order to be complete.
It's important to talk about the difference between projects and action items. This is a core part of the Getting Things Done system. And if you read Getting Things Done by David Allen, he spends a good deal of the text talking about the difference. So as an example of the difference between a project and an action item might be buying a house. Buying a house is not something you can just sit down and do, as much as we'd love for that to be the case. You have to research different houses, find out about loan options, you have to talk to realtors, you have to schedule times to go see the house, you have to make offers, and so on and so on. Buying a house is not something you just sit down and do. Buying a house is a project. The idea in the Getting Things Done system and in our task management framework is you have lists of projects, which are tracked separately from your action items, and once a week, or as you like, you generate truly actionable items from those projects. So if I review on my personal Ian Charnas board and see that I want to buy a house that's in my project, I might generate an action item that says, call 555-1212, schedule an appointment with this particular realtor to see 123 West Elm Street next Thursday at 2 p.m. That's a fairly actionable item. Even at the end of the day, when I'm tired and exhausted and I don't have much brain power left, because I've scripted that out for myself, it becomes imminently actionable. So that's the difference really between action items and projects. A project are multi-step things that take longer than a single shift or a single day. Action items, on the other hand, are things you can sit down whenever you have time and get started doing. So let's apply that to what's sitting in our inbox now.
All right, Ian, go ahead and create our next list over on the far right-hand side. So we're going to make our projects list. This is a list that we can come back to on a regular basis in order to keep track of our progress and generate more action items. So in this projects list, we're going to create a new project. Implement new vinyl storage option. So now that we've created this project, we can keep track of our progress. Trello gives us a number of ways to do this. We could track it in the description by writing out our action items as an outline and turning that outline into action items later on. Or we could do something a little bit cooler and create a checklist. So Ian, let's make a checklist.
Alrighty. So this would be a checklist of the action items that we're going to create one at a time as we're able to. So let's make our first action item. Research online options for vinyl roll storage. Next, select an option for vinyl roll storage. Of course, we're going to have to order the selected option, install the selected vinyl storage option, and then fill it with vinyl.
So all at once, we've gone through and created a rough outline of what it is we need to do in order to implement our new vinyl storage option. Now, we can turn each of these individual checklist items into an action item. So Ian, let's go ahead and ask a student to help us research some different vinyl storage options.
Okay, and as we do that, of course, we can do a little bit of cleanup here in our inbox. We no longer need this amorphous to-do item because we are tracking this as a project and we're creating action items from that project. So let's go ahead and create that action item. Research storage options for vinyl rolls. Hello, student. Please search online for storage options for our rolls of vinyl for the vinyl cutter. Read online reviews of the various options you find and select the 3 options you think would best work in our space. Add those as links in the comments on this card, and then move the card to ready for review. There we go. So we've scripted out what we want to have happen, and we're going to assign that to a student worker and move it into the in-progress action items once it's been assigned. That student worker then is going to go online and find those 3 links to their 3 favorite storage options, after which they would move this card to ready for review. We would review it ourselves as the staff and ensure that we like those options and we have one that we think is best. We'll select the one we think is best, order it, and we'll move this card over to the done list.
Now, when we review it, we can head over to our project list and update our project. We had our student research online options for vinyl roll storage and give us those options. So we're done. Now it's up to us to select which vinyl roll storage option we want. Then we'll just continue making action items in order to see this project through. And once we've completed it, it's done. And now we have our shiny new vinyl storage solution for our space.
So when a project is done, just as with the action items, we can take that project and move it into the done list. The done list is a great way to stay motivated. If you create tasks that are lightweight and easy to accomplish, you'll find that these action items are moving very quickly from the inbox all the way to the done column, and you'll get that sense of momentum in your organization that you are truly getting things done.
So Ian, I think I have something for the inbox.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just had a great idea. What if we built a Pi 3D printer?
Build a Pi 3D printer. You're talking
Yeah.
about the food.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that this is going to be big. This is going to put us on the map. So let's do that. Let's build a Pi 3D printer.
Well, I got to tell you, Ray, we get ideas like this from our student workers, and not just from our student workers, but from our users. Sometimes the ideas that we get are implementable, and they're things that achieve organizational objectives, and we decide to turn those into projects and action items. Sometimes we'll have ideas that are good, like this Pi 3D printer. I mean, who wouldn't want a 3D printer that can make you a delicious pie any day of the week? But we're not ready to do that right now. There's higher priority things that we need to get done for this space. So we need a place to store these ideas that we might someday implement. Where do we store those ideas?
I think we could probably make a new list for projects just such as these, and we call it the Someday Maybe list.
The Someday Maybe list. So this is where you can capture ideas that your student workers have or that you have that might be very wonderful ideas indeed, but you're just not ready to implement them. Don't keep those in your inbox, clogging it up. Don't script those out into projects and clog up your projects board. Go ahead and give yourself the option to put them in a Someday Maybe list. The benefit of the Someday Maybe list versus not writing them down at all is that your mind will stop reminding you of those things. Your mind will cease those mental pop-up notifications to, hey, I wonder if we could do this really cool project like the Pi 3D printer. So I'm going to take that card and I'm going to move it all the way over to the Someday Maybe list. It's tracked. If we get a chance to do that in the future, we can. If not, we're able to focus immediately on our higher priority items.
Okay, well, I guess that's all right then.
So that's our final list in our system. This system is a way to implement the Getting Things Done framework in a team-oriented fashion. So anything can go in the inbox. It doesn't have to be scripted out. Items then move into our action items list as they're scripted out and then assigned to student workers. We may ask our student workers to give us the option to review their work, or we may ask them to move those cards directly to done. If they run into an issue, that card gets moved into problem waiting for, so that again, it's not clogging up our system. Long-term or multi-step action items get turned into projects, and things that we might want to do one day but aren't ready to do today get put in the someday maybe list.
And so that's how we track all the things we do at our Makerspace. By creating this board that's immediately transparent and accessible, we get everyone on board with getting things done. Now, what we've shown you here today is a fantastic foundation for your own task management system. It's going to help you get all those amorphous blobs of stuff and turn them into actionable things that you and your team can do. And as you're doing this, you'll find more and more tools or resources on Trello and elsewhere in order to help refine your process so that it works for you.
That's right. Beyond the basics that we've shown you today, there's many more features just in Trello. Each of these cards can have a due date. Each of these cards can have file attachments. There's power-ups that let you create cards in a repeating fashion, and so on. So we've gone over a really strong and rugged foundational framework for you to get things done with Trello. And we encourage you to check out Trello and also to check out Getting Things Done by David Allen. Most every staff member at our Makerspace has a copy of this book. We just find it that useful.
And the good news is you can get started immediately by going to Trello.com, Trello, and creating your own free account. As soon as you get started with Trello, you can create your own task management board by following the steps that we've shown you here today.
Hey, Ray, we've got another minute here. Why don't we show off some of the real power of Trello? Why don't we show off one of the power-ups? There's a power-up we use every single day. You know it. You love it. It's called Card Repeater, and this is how we keep track of our maintenance tasks. Why don't we go over how to use our task management framework and the Card Repeater power-up to manage your maintenance tasks in your Makerspace.
All right, so let's dive in on making this task management platform even more useful. And we'll start by turning on our first power-up. So we're going to go over here to the menu and power-ups. And Trello has this really nice marketplace where people can upload their own power-ups. And I'm going to look for
Card Repeater.
Card Repeater. There it is in all of its beauty. And I'm going to add this power-up to our board. Okay, so we're set. We have Card Repeater turned on. Unfortunately, there's no way to see that, but you'll see that in just a moment. So we're going to make some repeating maintenance tasks that are automatically going to populate in our unassigned action items list. So these are the things that we have to do every day, every week, every month, and we're going to make them appear automatically using Card Repeater. So let's get started with that. We're going to go all the way over to the right and create a new list, and this one's going to be called Maintenance. Yes, this is where all the best stuff is held. And in Maintenance, I'm going to add a daily task, clean the laser cutter optics.
Now, if you're not cleaning your laser cutter optics already, you should be. In every brand out there of laser cutter, whether it's Trotec, Universal, Epilogue, you name it, there are going to be a set of mirrors, probably 2 mirrors and 1 lens, and you're supposed to clean them once a day. The built-up soot and residue, when the laser hits it, if there's residue built up on the mirror, it's going to heat up the mirror and decrease the life. So if you want to get the cleanest cuts and keep your optics working as long as possible, you need to be doing this on a daily basis. If you're not doing it already, that's okay. We're going to get you started on a good system here today.
So I'm going to click on the Clean the Laser Cutter Optics card, and let's add a description. Hello, please clean the laser cutter optics using the instructions linked below, and move this card to done when you're finished. Thanks, Ray. All right, so what we're going to do is, fortunately for me, I already have a link to our handy-dandy Clean the Laser Cutter Optics tutorial. So just hovering over this card, I'm going to hit Control-V to paste it. And here's the link, and I'm just going to change this to Clean the Laser Cutter Optics tutorial. So I'll go ahead and give you a sneak peek of that. If I click on this link, I'm going to go to this handy-dandy Google document where we've documented the entire process, step-by-step, pictures for every step so that any student worker can step in and do this task. We have these documents written up for many, if not all of our maintenance tasks, and you can learn more about that in our maintenance system podcast. So now that I have this maintenance task all written up, the next thing to do is make sure it repeats. So I'm going to go over here to power-ups. You'll notice that since we've turned on the card repeater power-up, we see the repeat button. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up this dialog, and it's going to ask me how often do I want to repeat this task. Do I want to do it weekly, monthly, yearly? In this case, I want to do it daily. And we're open 7 days a week, so I want it to happen Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And now this is something we do at the beginning of our day, so that from the very start, our laser cutters are operating at full capacity. And so we're going to have this happen at 8:30 a.m., bright and early. This is going to happen every week. If I wanted to change it, I could, but this is something we do every week, every day. And now, finally, I need to specify where the card will repeat to. You'll recall, we want to put this into the unassigned action items so that if I know a student worker who can do this, I can assign them, or those enterprising student workers can take that task upon themselves voluntarily. So we're going to put this into unassigned action items. This is something I want to happen, so I'm going to put it at the top so it has maximum visibility, and then I'm going to save. And so what's going to happen is it's going to tell me when the next repeat is going to happen, July 24th at 8:30 a.m., and it's going to do it every day after that, so that every morning our student workers will know what maintenance tasks they need to do at opening.
Ray, that's great. Now, we don't want to wait until 8:30 a.m. the following day. Why don't we change that time just for the purpose of the podcast, and we can demonstrate how this would work. So why don't we change it to 7 p.m.?
All right, so we've changed the time, and so we're going to scroll back all the way over here to our unassigned action items, and we'll work some magic in order to
Yeah, what are those? They're called edits?
Edits.
We're going to do this
Yes,
fancy editing.
We're going
like
to
a
edit.
cut.
Whoa!
Huzzah!
It's there! Clean the
magic
laser cutter
of
optics.
editing. Amazing, folks.
And so if I scroll back over here, you'll see that our master copy is still over here in the maintenance task. If I want to update the maintenance task, I update just this card. But now we have a copy. It's got instructions. And our student workers are prepared to start the day off right with some clean laser cutter optics.
So, Ray, a student worker sees this. What's next?
Okay, so it's in unassigned. What happens next is, let's say I'm up that early, and I'm going to go ahead and, on this card, give it to this most diligent of student workers, myself. Add it to in progress. I'm going to go clean the laser cutter optics. I'm going to follow the instructions that we have linked on this card. And I'm going to follow the instructions, and when I'm done,
You move it to done.
it goes into done.
So this follows the same path as everything else in our task management system. So the goal of all this is to get your space running by itself. If you have a list of maintenance tasks that's populated with dozens or hundreds of items, those cards are automatically repeating and appearing in your action items list. Your student workers, staff, or volunteers are taking action on those immediately. All that is happening auto-magically without your need to jump in and get involved. And it kind of gets the feeling of a flywheel. At first, you create a couple of these maintenance tasks, and a few things start happening automatically. And by the time you have dozens or hundreds of maintenance tasks, you have a fully functioning organization with many things happening that don't need you on a day-to-day basis, and it frees you up. When your Makerspace is running itself, it frees you up to do those big, bold, important things that only you can do. That's the point of a task management system, getting things done in a way that activates your entire team, including giving you time for those precious things that only you can do. That's all for today. Tune in next time for more Makerspace management tips. Until then, I'm Ian Charnas.
And I'm Ray Craggy, and this has been Makerspace Podcast. See you next time.
If you find this show valuable, please take 60 seconds and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or YouTube. If you can raise the visibility of Makerspace Podcast, it helps people find this show and join the conversation. Finally, if you know someone who is building or running a Makerspace or thinking about it, consider sharing this with them.
You can find us online at makerspacepodcast.com. or send us an email with your questions and feedback to info@makerspacepodcast.com. Special thanks to Kate Hart for our theme music.